Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about ways that we can organize our scene.
That's right. We're going to kind of finalize the set area as we take our the various articles of our set and we organize them into layers. Using the layer manager.
Very cool.
So let's go ahead and get rolling.
Let's do that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show the layer manager.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it with this tool right up here, this button.
Okay.
Layer manager. Boom. There is the layer manager.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Now, just like a real quick walk around this very small interface, what do we have? We've got kind of a toolbar across the top with a few functions, and then we have the massive window that's going to show us a list of all of our layers,
right?
As well as give us the ability to kind of check and uncheck a variety of functionalities, including whether or not a layer is hidden, whether it's frozen, whether or not it will render, and finally we can put a master color upon all objects within a layer.
Sure, yeah. And
is there anything else after that? If we scroll over? Radiosity.
Yes.
And this is whether or not that object will be calculated under a radiosity situation, which we're not really worried about right now.
Nah, that's kind of more advanced type stuff.
Yeah.
But, basically the layer manager is pretty simple. It allows you to take different objects and organize them into different, layers, if you will. And then it's easy to kind of like show them and hide them and get them out of the way so they're not cluttering up your viewports when you're working.
Sure, just a nice way to categorize elements in your scene.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start off and create a few layers.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just kind of show how it works.
Before we do that, actually, I didn't mean to leave this out. I did want to mention, it is important to note that as soon as you open the layer manager, you already see a layer. You have layer 0, which in parentheses is default. All objects in your scene by default are placed into the default layer.
That is correct.
So if you were to hide that layer...
Right, which you can do just by clicking below the hide column here. You're going to see this little mask here, and you can see everything in our scene is gone. It is hidden.
Right.
And same thing goes for freeze. We can actually freeze all of the objects in our scene very quickly, which means we can no longer select them.
Nice.
And so again, you see kind of like a little, snowflake. It's frozen.
Right, exactly.
And that's kind of how it works. And then you could also click the render button, and now nothing will render if you wanted to, hit the render button, which we didn't quite talk about yet, but we'll get into that later.
Sure.
And so everything is kind of in this default layer. So now why don't I go ahead and I'll create a new layer. Now there are a couple ways that we could go about this. We can hit this button here for creating a new layer.
Okay.
And then we could add our objects to that new layer, or you can select the objects first and then hit this button, and it'll automatically be added to that new layer.
Very nice. Well, let's try it both ways. Let's go ahead and create a layer first.
Okay, let's do that.
Now, let's make this a layer for the ball.
Sounds good. So ball, now I'll go ahead and I'll select our ball. I'm going to turn on wireframe unshaded first. Our ball is selected. Now I'm going to come down here to highlight our layer that we want to add the ball to.
Okay.
And now this plus sign is what allows us to add the selected objects to this highlighted layer. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now the ball is added to the ball layer, and you can actually see this little plus breakout box here on the left. If you click that, you can see that the talented ball is under the ball layer.
Nice. Now I do notice that we've talked about many of the columns there. We have the hide, freeze, render, color, and then radiosity, which is hidden.
Sure.
What's the little checkbox going to be for?
Well, that is actually what is currently the layer that things will be added to.
Right, that's your active layer.
Right.
And as you create objects in your scene, they will automatically be placed within the active layer.
Sure.
So just keep that in mind. That's why, one of the reasons why when you first open the layer editor, this checkbox is by the default layer, because everything you've created so far has been dropped into the default layer. The reason that's important is if you create your layers beforehand, like if you start off your scene by creating a few layers, like let's say you know that your scene is going to have a chair, and you know it's going to have a table, and maybe a room around it, and you create those layers first, if you don't pay attention to where that checkbox is, you'll be adding those objects into the wrong layer.
Right.
And that's not really a problem. You can remove and add them into other layers later down the road. But just something to keep in mind is that when you see that check on a particular layer, that is the layer to which new objects will be added.
Sure, it is active. And that's why when I'm done, playing with the layer manager and I go to hide it again, I'll always make sure that my default layer is checked.
Nice.
Just a little workflow issue.
Cool.
So now we have our ball there. You can see it's hidden. It's frozen. You can no longer select it. And so that works pretty well.
Now, you'll notice that up along at the top of the interface, we have the ability to add selected objects in the layer up in that toolbar.
Right.
We don't have anything to remove an object from a layer. Now, why would that be? The reason is you can't really take an object and not have it be in a layer.
Right.
It's always in a layer. So if you need to pull an object out of a given layer, all you need to do is add it back to the default layer.
Right.
So you could select that object, you could click on your default layer and click Add. You've technically removed it from your ball layer, and you've put it back into your default layer.
And that actually brings me to another tool up here. Let's say we want to delete a layer. We do this with the X here.
Cool.
But the layer has to be empty before we could do it.
Ah, very nice. Does it give you a warning or anything?
I believe it does, or it just doesn't let you do it.
Let's go ahead and click Add.
Yeah.
Add the
Let's
object
bring it back.
in, and then, look, the X just grays out, so you can't even do it.
You can't even do it, exactly.
So there
I was
go.
thinking there wasn't a warning.
Yeah. All right, so there you go. Now let's go ahead and create a new layer.
Sure. Why don't we, this time we'll select our object first.
Okay, sounds good.
And then we'll just go ahead and, create our new layer button.
Boom.
And we'll call this one Floor.
Okay.
Like how
you'll
it
notice
alphabetizes them.
Yeah, it immediately adjusted to put them all in alphabetical order.
That's
and
pretty
if you
cool.
expand the floor layer, floor is inside.
Yep.
So there you go.
And not only can you hide or freeze everything in the layer, you could also hide or freeze the individual objects that are in the layer.
Super, super nice.
Yeah, pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back up to default. And now you can see that, our floor is frozen, so we can't select it. Pretty
excellent,
handy.
Excellent.
So now why don't we go ahead and add the rest of our objects to layers and get everything set up.
Okay.
So now I'm going to create, I kind of like selecting things first. So now I'm going to do a layer for the wall and the curtains.
Okay.
Including the valances up here and the curtain rods. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a marquee select, everything here.
Sure.
You can see our door is also selected because we want that added to this layer as well. And I'll click Create New Layer. And I'll call it Wall and Curtains.
Nice.
And there we go. That works as well.
Very cool.
And why don't I go ahead and freeze everything as I go along, just, because we are kind of optimizing our scene.
Just so you can't select things.
Exactly. And the last layer will be, I'm going to go ahead and add this layer first just to keep changing things up a little bit.
Okay.
We'll call this one Stage Props.
All right, and this will contain our stool and our microphone.
That's correct. So we'll go ahead and highlight that one. Now, before we can add these objects to the layer, we actually have to make a note of something. These objects are actually in group form right now. Now, in order to add a group to a layer, we actually have to open the group.
Well, technically, to add all of the members of a group.
That is correct. Right.
So we need to make sure that we can select all of those members, so we need to make sure that the groups themselves are open.
Right. So let's do that. Let's select both of our groups. Go up to the group menu item here. Click Open. And now we could just go ahead and marquee select all of the members of those groups.
Right.
And Stage Props is highlighted, so let's click plus.
And there we go.
We freeze it. Yep. And why don't we go ahead and close those two groups real quick. Just to keep things nice and tidy. Close.
Cool. Now, one last thing that we can do, if we expand this here, you'll notice that we have all of the different elements of our various layers, if you will.
Sure.
Let me go ahead and demonstrate on curtains what I want to talk about. You can change the color of a layer. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. Let me unfreeze some of these. Let's see, who am I going to pick on for this? Let's grab, well, you could just grab the floor, something real simple. It's only got one object, but let's do something a little more interesting. We'll do the stage props.
Sure.
It's got a lot of objects, so it might take me just a second. But you notice we have a color swatch here, and I can click it. And let's see, we do yellow and click OK, and notice nothing changes color.
Right.
Kind of irritating. So let's kind of stretch this window out just a little. There we go.
Thing.
And we'll expand this. Now, what you can do is you can go into each object, click its individual color swatch, and look at this. We have active color, 3ds Max palette, all these things down here, and we can go by object, and if we click this, it switches to by layer.
Okay.
So we click OK, and notice instead of a color, we get just a little dot down here.
Right.
So we can come down here, grab this guy, click by layer, and do this to all of the objects inside this layer.
Sure.
Which will take me just a moment.
So that little button is actually indicating that you're no longer having an individual color. You're just going to use the layers color.
That's right. Whatever color I assign to the layer will be assigned to all of the members of that layer, which makes this a really nice organizational tool.
Sure. And it kind of gets rid of that day glow look you see on the stage right now.
I'll actually skip the, let's see, the stool is fine. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll skip the mic cord. We'll leave that gray.
Sure.
Just for the fun of it.
Yeah. And then we could sort of go and change all of the objects in those layers at the same time just by changing the layer color.
That's right. I can now come in here to the stage props layer, choose that layer color swatch, and choose, I don't know, maybe a red, and click OK, and everything turns red.
Very
so
cool.
It's a real easy way for you to set up a visual indication of what objects are in what layers.
Sure.
Instead of seeing a random assortment of colors based on how the objects were created, you can choose to see those based on what layer they're in, which is very, very handy as a viewport organizational tool.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that.
All right, so I think with that, we have organized our scene. And
I'm going to go ahead and set our layer back to default, our
Okay.
active layer, rather. Check there. And then you could hit close here, or you can just go back up to the toolbar and click the Layer Manager button to hide it again.
All right, well, I think with that, the set itself is pretty much finished up. There was one last thing.
Yeah,
that
actually, I
kind
kind of wanted to go and accentuate our curtain flow a little bit more, if you will.
Yeah.
Just because, they're wavy, but, we could accentuate that a little bit more.
Sure.
And I think I also might want to go and see how they're kind of coming out here in the center. Maybe reverse it so they're actually going inward instead.
Oh, nice word.
Do the same with the valances as well.
Do it.
I'll do it. So I'm going to go ahead and Alt-W and maximize the top viewport. Go ahead and zoom out a little bit.
Make this nice and easy to see.
Yeah. Now I'll go ahead and we have our right curtain selected. I'll go into vertex mode. And
now, you'll notice that he's already got a selection of vertices held over from the last time he was working with the curtains.
Right.
If for any reason you don't have this selection, simply draw a marquee selection box around your lower selection of vertices.
Very
and you're good
easy.
to go.
I'll go ahead and do that now just in case. Deselect. Marquee select.
Cool.
Now we have everything selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and select my Move tool and just go ahead and type in an exact value for where I want these vertices to be positioned.
Okay.
I'm going to go with a Y value of 0. Now I'm going to hit a cool keyboard shortcut. I'm going to reverse my selection.
Inverse your selection.
Yes, inverse my selection. There you go. Because inverse is actually, the hotkey is Control-I for inverse. So that makes a lot of sense. So if I do that, I've inverted my selection. Now I've selected basically the opposite vertices in the curtain.
Right. Anything that was deselected now becomes selected.
Right. So now I'm going to go ahead and type in -3.
Okay.
And
Nice.
and I like that. Yeah, getting a little bit more of a wave there.
Right.
Looks pretty good.
Bit
And
more
I kind of like
defined.
having it go inward in the center.
Sure.
So that's done. I'll go into object mode, and I'm
Okay.
going to do the same for my left curtain as well.
Okay.
Go into vertex mode. And again, if you don't have them selected, you can go ahead and marquee drag and select. I'm going to go ahead and turn a value of 0 for these vertices.
Sure.
And I'm actually selecting in my scene again, so I'm deselecting what I see in the coordinate display.
Gotcha.
So that when I hit my hotkey, it's registering in the viewport and not down here.
I gotcha.
Control-I, and I'll type in a value of -3.
So at the very least, you go middle click on the viewport.
Exactly.
You just put focus back on the viewport before you hit Control-I.
Exactly. You can see focus is down here. I'm going to middle click. Now focus is back in the viewport.
Now you want to go ahead and do that to the valance as well?
Sure, why not? It's an easy thing to do. Go into vertex sub-object mode. And I'll give this a value of -3.
Okay.
Put focus back in the viewport, Control-I, and give this a value of -6.
Cool.
I'll do the same with the left valance, and we could call it a wrap. Call that one -3. Focus, Control-I, -6.
Nice.
Go back into object mode, get out of my Move tool, and I'll do an Alt-W to get back in the perspective viewport. And let me turn off wireframe unshaded with an F4 and see how that looks.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, so there you go.
All right, I think with that, we have pretty much finished up the stage as we want to build it. We've got our curtains in place. We've got everything set up into layers, so it'll be nice and easy to hide various objects or to freeze them as we animate. And that will wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.